The Senate has voted to advance a resolution designed to prevent further strikes in Venezuela without congressional authorization. 5 Republicans crossed the aisle to vote with Democrats, specifically Susan Collins of Maine, Josh Hawley of Missouri, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Rand Paul of Kentucky, and Todd Young of Indiana. The final tally, 52-47. President Trump harshly criticized those 5 Republicans on social media, writing they should never be elected to office again, and that their vote greatly hampers American self-defense and national security. Joining us now, MS Now senior Capitol Hill reporter and the host of Way Too Early, Ali Vitale, as well as Democratic Congressman Richie Torres of New York. Ali, I'll just start with you. Give us the background on this vote, those who voted for this, but also I'm interested in some of the Republicans who voted against this.
Yeah, I do think some interesting dynamics were teased out on the Hill yesterday, Mika. Yes, on this War Powers Resolution vote, but then also when the House took up the ACA subsidy discharge petition that would reinstate the lapsed subsidies that we know expired at the end of the year. It's a long shot. Those are not back in effect yet. But I think the larger thread through Capitol Hill yesterday was all of these were results of Trump's own actions, kind of forcing members of his own party to rebuke him quite publicly on a number of different issues. When you look at the War Powers Resolution piece, you know, I had talked to Senator Tim Kaine on Sunday night in the immediate aftermath of the Venezuela action to oust Maduro, and he said that this resolution, which he put up in very similar fashion at the end of last year, failed because Republicans privately told him they didn't think that the Trump administration had crossed any lines yet. He kind of wondered openly and optimistically if that might change vote totals now. He ended up being right. And I think it's really interesting when you look at the way some of these Republicans are explaining their votes. They were basically saying that Trump's comments to the New York Times, where he left open the possibility that this could be a protracted engagement on the ground in Venezuela, that made them feel compelled to sort of hem him in a little bit. And then, of course, when you bring in the fact that he's saying they should never be elected again, Susan Collins is one of those Republicans who voted in favor of this resolution. She is in a very contested battle to keep her Senate seat in Maine. It's a top target for Democrats on a map that is actually quite tough for them to flip some of these seats. And she basically openly wondered, okay, maybe he would rather work with Democratic Governor Janet Mills, who he has even less in common with politically. And so, again, Trump sort of forcing the issue on that could eventually work to his own detriment. And, Congressman, when I factor in the way that the House then voted on the ACA, 17 Republicans, and if I look at the list, many of them are in districts that Democrats are targeting to flip in the midterms. Do they feel that Trump is putting them in this position where they have to openly buck their own leadership? Yes, but then also buck the White House on an issue of health care where he really muddied the waters on any kind of a negotiation that they were trying to do? Is this the start of something, or do you think it's just moments in time and not indicative of a trend?
Look, hard to know for sure, but what we do know is the authoritarianism of Trump is as much a function of congressional capitulation from the Republicans as it is of Donald Trump himself. But I would give the credits to Democrats for forcing the hand of Republicans. I mean, the American people saw a clear contrast between the two parties on the issue of affordability. Every single House Democrat voted to lower cost for 22 million Americans, whereas nearly every Republican voted against it. And one of the ironies here is that the majority of those tax credits go to voters and constituents in red states that voted for Donald Trump. So Republicans and Donald Trump are effectively betraying their own voters.
Congressman, good morning. I want to ask you about the story we've been talking about for the last couple of days. Updates this morning about the shooting by an ICE agent, the fatal shooting of Renee Good in Minneapolis about 48 hours ago. As this has gone on, and we heard from the Vice President of the United States yesterday saying that she effectively brought this on herself, the victim of this shooting, by being part of what he called a broader left-wing network, didn't provide any evidence that she's a part of some network like that. I'm just curious, first, about the incident itself, what you see in that video, but also importantly about the response from this administration and the FBI kind of saying, we're not going to cooperate with state and local investigators on this. We've got it.
I mean, for me, it's nothing short of a scandal, and it's a reminder that brutality is not a bug, but a feature of Donald Trump's presidency. You know, Donald Trump and the vice president are blatantly lying to the American people, claiming that the shooting victim Renee was attempting to ram the police officer, the video clearly shows that she was driving away from the officer, not toward him. The officer was to the right of the vehicle. The wheels were turning to the right. The officer was to the left. And so they're just blatantly lying about the basic facts regarding the shooting. For me, it was much closer to murder than it was to anything resembling self-defense.
And you have some, back to Venezuela for a moment, Congressman, this legislation that you put out, which I think most people don't realize was out there. It's on these markets where people, anyone, can bet effectively on political outcomes, or in this case, the capture and ousting of Nicolas Maduro. Can you explain, first of all, the story that kind of prompted this, which is that somebody made a lot of money on the fact that he was ousted, and what your legislation aims to achieve?
When an anonymous trader using a brand new account on Polymarket pocketed more than $400,000 betting on the fall of Nicolas Maduro, and keep in mind, the bet was made hours before the actual event. And the trader could have been a government insider. And so there's real concern that there are people within the government who are placing bets on their own decision making. You know, imagine for a moment if you were a member of the Trump administration and you placed a bet predicting a future event like the capture of Nicolas Maduro. If you're both a government insider and a participant in the prediction markets, you now have a perverse incentive to push for policies that personally benefit you. And that kind of prediction market profiteering among public officials has no place in the ranks of the federal government.
Democratic Congressman Richie Torres of New York, thank you very much. And MS Now senior Capitol Hill reporter Ali Vitale, thank you as well.